All right, we are live. Sorry for the technical difficulties on BJJ Addict Radio. I'm Real DWC. Of course, we have Jero LP.
What's going on?
There he is. And we have a great guest tonight who's been gracious enough to take some time out. And obviously, with these difficulties, been nice enough to stick around and give us some more time. So we're going to start the interview right now with Dan Lukehart, also known as TrumpetDan. That's quite the catchy nickname. We'll get into how he got this also. Dan, welcome to the show. And if you don't mind, just for the listeners, can you just let us know how you kind of fell into Jiu-Jitsu and, just a quick little intro how you got started and obviously, you got bitten by the bug.
Of course. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I got started in Jiu-Jitsu officially in 2006. I'd been kind of following the reality show. Well, actually, I'd watched a few UFCs, and it always kind of piqued my interest. And in my house, it was kind of taboo to watch fighting and things like that. But kind of deep down, I wanted to do what they were doing because I loved physical challenges. So I was introduced to the sport of Jiu-Jitsu, the martial art of Jiu-Jitsu, through The Ultimate Fighter, essentially. So, like many people, I tried to con my friends into working off instructional DVDs. But I finally manned up, and then in the first month of 2006, I started at the Gracie Academy, and under Huron and Henry Gracie. I trained there briefly before I tried an academy close to my house, and it was led by Brad Jackson. It was House Gracie Anaheim. And I had no intention of signing up. I just went for the trial class just to kind of see what it was. And I ended up teaching his kids music because I was a music teacher when we got to talking. And he offered to give me private lessons. So I was at his house every day receiving private lessons from Brad Jackson. He was really kind of my instructor in my most formulative time. And then because Brad was the owner of House Gracie Anaheim, he sold it to one of my training partners' parents, and they opened up a new location, and then I kind of started gradually training there and there more under Bruno Paulista. And now that I'm brown belt here, I opened up my own academy, Jiu-Jitsu, which I'm currently teaching all the classes for. So that's kind of a brief introduction of myself.
Perfect. I was just wondering, you're starting off and you're getting privates, which is, I would assume, rare for most people's stories. Maybe they'll get a private here and there when they want to get some extra, but how much did that play into the growth of your knowledge compared to the average white belt, say?
Yeah, I definitely had a unique experience at white belt. I was a two-stripe white belt when I started with him. I got 2 stripes very quickly at the Gracie Academy, and then I was 2 stripes forever under Brad. And I was getting probably 2 private lessons per week because he had 2 kids. I taught two lessons. He gave me 2 privates, but I was helping him with his privates as well on the off days. So, I mean, I say I got everyday privates, but it was really 2 times that I was just kind of there, helping, being the body, being the dummy for the other sessions. And kind of one of the main benefits of private lessons is that your instructor can more carefully monitor your progress. For example, he knows yesterday you learned a standing guard open, and then maybe you can go over some variations for the next training session, and then how to pass. So it can be done in a more logical manner. Because when you're in an academy, you just do what the academy is doing. It would be difficult to do it any other way as an academy. So I got a lot more individual feedback from Brad. And also I got a lot of philosophy because, we'd just be working a technique and then we get sidetracked talking about something. And I get wonderful stories about Jiu-Jitsu in the 90s when he came up through the ranks, through Hickson and Rodrigo and Horion's Academy. So I get wonderful stories, I get wonderful philosophy. So I was kind of exposed to that a little bit sooner. And there was probably 6 to 8 guys that trained out of his garage regularly, and then kind of occasional drop-ins. And those guys, man, you got a really warped sense of how good or bad you were. In my case, bad. I didn't think I was any good. I was always working my defense. because my training partners were my coach, and he was very, very brutal. He rolled with you like you were a black belt. So you got your defenses very, very sharp. And then the other guys that I was training with were top guys who were seeking out additional private instruction. So one of my first training partners in the garage there was Sean Roberts. A lot of people know Sean now. So it was guys like that I was constantly getting smashed by as a white belt. So it definitely colored my experience a little bit.
Nice.
Who is the most influential person to have effect in your style of jiu-jitsu?
That's a wonderful question, and it can only be answered in part. When I studied at the Gracie Academy, I was only there for a couple of months, but, you know, it's just like an 8-year-old child, you know, the philosophies and the foundation that you lay there really impact you as you progress through the ranks. And kind of the philosophy that they imparted was a defense-first philosophy. Now that metamorphosis happened, we all kind of seen Hiron's approach to that. They had a very kind of Helio Gracie-centered approach where it's, you know, most of the techniques that they were showing were against untrained opponents, that they were street certified, that it needed to be basic. So that kind of played into my philosophy. But I wasn't there long enough to actually have the specific techniques that they were teaching be imparted on me. So it was just more a method of thinking. And then when I started with Brad, he laid kind of the specific techniques on top of that philosophy. Because like most people of Brad's generation, which is he started a little bit before the UFC #1, they kind of had all the same background. They trained at Rorion Gracie's Gracie Academy. They trained at Hickson's. There was only a couple of options, you know, at that time, and he kind of floated through them all. So he not only gave me and understood where I was coming from the Gracie Academy, but he introduced me to the other aspects as well. So, you know, you have Helio's side, which is like you need to be patient. You need to wait for the collar choke to come in, and then you snatch it. You need to wait for the armbar, and then you snatch it. And then he introduced me to the Carlson side, which he was also exposed to. And he's like, yeah, you can also do this philosophy of you can just take it, and no matter what he does, you can do it no matter what. So he kind of rounded me out a little bit. And then because he understood the philosophies I had, he was all about standing and opening the guard, for example. He was all about crushing, passing. So those specific techniques he laid down and still play a major role to where I am today. And then when I went to House Gracie, you know, Bruno at Blue Belt gave me some really core techniques, but most of my progress really came from my training partners. The kind of the atmosphere that was there was one that you could go anytime. You know, there was a hide a key. You could punch in the code and then train. So a lot of my training partners were really obsessed with jiu-jitsu as well. So we just kind of bounce ideas off of each other, experiment, drill, and that's what kind of took me from just being average to a little bit above average, kind of my training partners. So they really played a huge role. The guys that probably many people in Southern California have heard of now. So.
Nice. For the people that don't know, listening at the moment, you also teach music to kids and to private lessons, you were saying. I'm just wondering if there's any parallel to teaching of jiu-jitsu and your teaching of music. Like, you've done music longer, I assume, so did this help play a part in your instruction to the Brazilian jiu-jitsu also?
Yeah, and there's two really interesting components to this question. And one is that you're asking me from a teaching approach, but there's also just the approach of learning music and how learning music helped me learn jiu-jitsu. So I'll kind of start with teaching. I started teaching music essentially right out of high school. I started at 19. I started teaching and serving as a clinician for various high schools and high school marching band. And I just kind of fell into that whole elementary thing just by coincidence. I always wanted to teach high schoolers because I felt they were a little bit older, a little bit ready for a little bit more of the nuance of it. And essentially the process of teaching anything. It doesn't matter if it's chess, it doesn't matter if it's music, it doesn't matter if it's jiu-jitsu. It's more or less the same type of process that you do to get somebody to acquire information, or knowledge, rather. Knowledge is a better word. So, before I was actually even a white belt in jiu-jitsu, or started training, I should say, everybody's a white belt in jiu-jitsu, I was familiar and had a lot of experience with teaching others a process. So that really helped because I didn't feel like I was coming in as a rookie as a teacher. But also music helped my jiu-jitsu as well, because I started music when I was, like a lot of people, 7 years old, started on piano and kind of diversified out as I got older. And you really learn a lot from trying to sustain something at a high level for 20 plus years. Because, there's a different level of enthusiasm that you have when you're on day one versus year 20. And I've kind of already experienced that life cycle and kind of the peaks and valleys that come with, trying to master a craft. So that really helped me in my jiu-jitsu progress as well, just as a practitioner myself. So it helped both my teaching and as a practitioner.
What comes first between your two careers?
That depends if anybody in my music career is listening to this podcast. Quite honestly, though, I've been doing music since I was 7, teaching since I was 19, or maybe even 18. And I had kind of a nurturing quality about my peers when I was in high school as well. I was a leader in high school. So I've been teaching for a long time on music, over a decade almost now. And the life cycle of a music student has become tired and replayed in my mind a little bit. So I'm really looking to withdraw slowly from music and focus more on jiu-jitsu. It doesn't really impact my jiu-jitsu training. It doesn't really impact my schedule because it's just in between the classes, which I do the music thing. But this is what I tell people always. I tell people that I have a passion for teaching and I like music. Where jiu-jitsu is, I have a passion for teaching and I have a passion for jiu-jitsu. So instead of a passion and a like, it's a passion and a passion. So I'm always the type of person that follows where my heart and my mind lead me, and it's kind of leading me to more jiu-jitsu at this point.
Sweet. So I discovered you, like most people do. I'm a big avid fan of YouTube. YouTube is not my professor, but key details are great. We have the most learning tools we've ever had in the history of.
It's amazing.
It's unreal. So I like to take advantage of everything I have. I stumble across your video, and it's showing how you set up your classes for the week. Personally, yeah. I think this approach was genius. Of course, like anything, you got the keyboard warriors tearing you up. Some people praising you, of course. I saw nothing but greatness in you actually showing people, hey, I'm an instructor, this is how I do it. And I'm sure it's not all the time, but how can't it help? So for the people listening, can you maybe explain how you set up your class? And I saw all the parts, and it really showed that your students were grasping what you were putting down. So you're doing something right. So maybe the ideology behind this, and why you watch live rolling opposed to highlights, and maybe just how you put together your learning process.
Yeah. So for the benefit of the audience, what you're talking about is the video analysis that I incorporate into my classes. I don't always incorporate video analysis into my classes, and it kind of depends where we are in the competition season. Because competition season, you need to do rolling, and you need to do a lot of rolling, and you need to do specific training, and you need to do drilling. It's not the time for growth, which is why you kind of need to balance, competing sometimes and then just taking a time not to compete and just grow as a martial artist and improve your skills. But when we're not in that mode, a regular part of my classes is including live video analysis. And the audience can kind of check out some of those videos that I posted online.
Plug your YouTube channel so they actually know where to search.
Yeah, of course. My old YouTube channel, which is not as updated, is TrumpetDan BJJ. That's the one that kind of I got started with. And I'm focusing more on posting on our Brea Jiu-Jitsu channel, so you can just go YouTube and then search for Brea Jiu-Jitsu. And there's kind of some samples as far as how we do our class structure. So I don't have any warm-ups in my Jiu-Jitsu class. I think that warm-ups either tend to be grueling physical exercise for 30 minutes, and it's not a warm-up at all, it's conditioning, or they're repetitive jumping jacks, everybody count 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, now let's do some push-ups, let's do some in-place hip escapes, which is insanely boring, and for anybody that's passed their first 3 months in Jiu-Jitsu, it's not helpful whatsoever. And for those that train multiple times a day, you're doing 40 push-ups in 3 times throughout the day, you just wear and tear your body. So we don't do any warm-ups in a traditional sense. I typically pick a kind of a basic movement, not always, but I pick a basic movement to warm up with. I'll just go with what I did yesterday. I did, from close guard, I did the flower sweep or shanji sweep, somebody call it, to a trap and roll escape, and then just repeat it. So that was our warm up. And instead of kind of using those 15 minutes for the warm-up, I'm using it for actual technique and improvement of that sense. And I tend to choose, or try to choose anyway, techniques that are a little bit better for warm-ups, like something loose, like a leg drag or an X-pass or a Toriando or a sweep that's not kind of crushing or anything like that, so you can kind of loosen up the muscles. Then most of the other class is just like any other class, really. But I may have a theme for the week. One of the ones that's online, you can check out the process that I had, was Marcelo Garcia. So what I did on my own is I watched a bunch of Marcelo Garcia tape. I studied him. I'm not a member of MG in Action. I've seen it, of course. But I didn't choose his instructionals to try and learn his style. I watched him roll, and I saw which techniques were the most commonly utilized. And specifically for Marcelo Garcia, you sign up in MG in Action, it's like from the guard you have 11,000 techniques. It's like, where do you start? What's important? So when I studied the rolling, you pick out the components that are the most important, and then you try and weave it together in a system of movements. Because that's what all great competitors have, even mediocre competitors. They have a system that works for them. So let's say Marcelo, he really likes butterfly sweep, he really likes X-guard. Well, one of the first things that you discover when you study tape on him is that when the guy is on both knees, he goes for butterfly sweeps all the time. And he has kind of a specific way that he does it, where he scoots in at the same time where he does the sweep and kind of does like a throw on his side. Then when the guy posts a leg and he's not on both knees, he does either those sweeps or he goes to shin into X guard. And then when the opponent is standing, he always goes shin to shin, not always, but most of the time, goes shin to shin into single leg X into X. So what you've learned that, yeah, go ahead.
So I was just wondering, how big of a difference for someone like yourself is it to learn this way with watching live footage than an actual instructional? How much more understanding for you do you have, or effectiveness of the move? Like, how much would you say that it helps you compared to actual instructionals? Because, like, I'm sure, like me, a lot of people out there, we own a ton of content.
Yeah. Well, it helps me a ton because I'm a brown belt. And I don't need to be explained the concepts of the daily Hiva guard. I don't need to be, like most people who listen to this podcast, they already have, a lot of experience and don't need to be explained the ultra basics of it. So for me, it's incredibly helpful to study videotape, or whatever you call it now, study DVDs or YouTube or whatever. But I almost think that it's a natural part of the evolution to learn off of instructional videos first, so you can kind of appreciate the nuanced difference from actually studying tape and studying how it's actually done. I had this conversation with one of my students this morning because, like, you learn what I remember one instructor, I think it was a Fusion 2, and I watched some of these techniques, and I was so enamored with these techniques. They looked so complicated, so cool, so fancy, and I even wanted to do them in competition just because I thought that they were cool to do. And then when I actually got around to watching him compete, I saw maybe 10% of what I was training and drilling off of these DVDs. So it was experiences like that which led me to kind of think that there's something else here. They're either A, holding it back intentionally, which I don't think that they were, DVDs like these, or B, they just don't know how to teach kind of their system. Maybe they have some sort of general sense of their system, but don't know exactly what they're doing. Because what I find is that my best movements, I'm actually almost conscious of less. Like I'm just reacting on intuition when I get a subtle pressure from his leg in this manner. So for my best movements, I often find I have to reverse engineer myself. And that's what I kind of see with some of these guys when they're teaching their movements that they're really strong with. It's like they get it, but they kind of miss part of it. And I've experienced this myself, so trying to teach people my best movements, because I'm actually better at teaching people movements I'm not as good at, because I have to understand every single part, than those I'm really good at. But kind of back to the original topic of studying tape, is that and the benefits of it, is you get to really see, A, what is happening when you're not actually doing the sweep, when you're not actually doing the pass, when you're not actually doing the submission. Because if you think about it, in Jiu-Jitsu, what percentage of the time are you actually doing one of those things? Very small percentage of the time. And that's because, you're trying to do the pass, but it's not working. Well, why isn't it working? What did he do to kind of overcome that little problem to get himself in the position to be able to pass? And those are kind of some of the gold nuggets that you get when you study tape. So I think that everybody can benefit from it, but I think that as you get more experience, that you benefit more from it. And it's something kind of interesting. Because I regularly include video analysis in the classes, I actually almost sign up more blue belts than I do white belts at my academy, which is something that's really interesting. I have a lot of classes where it's like there's 2 white belts in the class and then 12 colored belts, which is something really weird for a new academy. So it's kind of interesting because those online, I think they see kind of what I do and appreciate what I do differently than other people. But for the people that just sign up because I'm the closest academy to their house, they have no idea. This is just the way Jiu-Jitsu is taught. So it's something that's kind of interesting that I've seen take place inside the walls of my academy.
Question for you. What do you think is your biggest weakness?
My biggest weakness? My biggest weakness is probably that I'm eclectic. To be a really good competitor, I'm assuming you mean as a Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. What do you mean, as a teacher or as a competitor? So I can best answer that.
As a teacher and as a competitor.
Yeah. As a competitor, like I was starting to say, is that I really like to learn a lot of people's different systems. And to be a really strong competitor, you really need to focus on one thing and focus on it obsessively. It's not very fun to just do the same things over and over again. Like I have my strong positions, who doesn't? But I take just months at a time just exploring new positions. And that sometimes can be a detriment. It's great as a teacher to be able to, somebody really likes Bushesha. What makes Bushesha? And I can show kind of some of the techniques. A lot of people like Leandro Low, and I can kind of highlight what Leandro does. So as a competitor, that's a weakness. And also as a competitor, I've never been like a physically dominant person. Like if you talk to my training partners, they'll say I'm all garbage. They'll say that my grips are unbreakable and they have grips of steel, but it's hogwash. Don't listen to them. They're just complimenting me. My physical has always been kind of a weakness when I go in. Some of that has been a result of injuries. I've had 2 knee surgeries, and I've always seemed to have some injury or another going on. In part, a result of my passion of jiu-jitsu, I just can't stop training. So I have a lot of room to grow as a competitor in the physical department. I think there's a lot of blue belts out there that do like insane conditioning, insane weightlifting. They're doing CrossFit, or they're doing circuit training, or they're doing this and that. I haven't really taken it to that level. When I started injuring myself at blue belt, when both of my knee surgeries happened at blue belt, I really decided that I wanted to kind of leave room for myself to grow as a competitor. So what I've kind of saved off until now is really kind of adding this physical component in. I'm not very flexible as well, so that kind of limits myself to some of the techniques I can do. So I think that's where I need to start growing, is a little bit of focus in my jiu-jitsu and a little bit incorporating some of the more physical attributes, because I think I've done what I've been doing long enough in that regard. So as a teacher, some of my weaknesses are, it depends who you are, because somebody's strength is going to be somebody's weakness. If a white belt comes into my academy, to some degree, it's going to be slightly more competitive oriented at my academy. In many ways, we're still just an average academy right now. I've only been open 7 or 8 months now, so we're just kind of like average Joe academy. But I'm trying to make it more competition focused. So like a new person may feel a little bit overwhelmed when we do 100x passes. You know, but then again, that's going to be somebody's strength in my teaching style, where we get to do 100x passes and we don't need to sit and do Kimura from when he puts his hand on the mat from close guard, you know? So it just kind of depends what your goals are. And if your goals are different than my goals for you as a teacher, then that's going to be weakness. But if your goals are in line, it's going to be strength.
Wow. You brought up a point where you said that you had 2 knee surgeries.
Yeah.
Like I hurt my knee, and I don't think I took the best approach by taking time off, say around like 3 weeks. What's the advice that you would give people to like help them with recovering it, and in terms of just being back on the mat? What do you do? What would you tell them?
Well, if you ask any one of my training partners, or if anybody is listening, they will know that I am the absolute worst person to ask that question to, because I've had a lot of injuries. Right now, I'm just kind of getting back in because I was having some knee soreness, and I had to take a month off. So I have learned a lot about injuries. My body is not the same as it was when I was 21. I have a lot more recovery abilities when I was 21. When I was 21, I was doing a lot of running, so my legs were strong, so therefore making it less likely to be injured. If there's one thing, though, that I can impart on people, is to listen to their bodies. And it's so easy to ignore what your body is telling you. And if you choose to ignore your body, like I did for both of my knee surgeries, it was silly, preventable reasons why I had my knee surgeries. It would be ridiculous if I showed you how I hurt my knees. But it's always kind of like an injury before an injury. I know my knee is a little bit wobbly. For example, right before my first knee surgery, it was summer, about the same time of year. So what do all of us that like jiu-jitsu do? We decided to spend all day at the academy. It was the first couple of weeks of summer. It was Friday. I'd just done a grueling week of training. I decided to go down to the beach, put on a weight vest for the first time. I hadn't done this before, and run on the sand. So I ran on the sand, and I got done with the workout. I was feeling pretty good, but then I kind of noticed my knee was feeling a little bit wobbly, and really could use the weekend off, or if not more. I was a little bit younger at the time and had not experienced a catastrophic injury yet. So I went to the academy, no intention of training. It was a Friday evening class. And this guy walks into the door who I was familiar with. He was a blue belt. I was a white belt, a hungry white belt at the time. And he was a fitness champion. I don't know what he was. He was like Mr. Orange County or something like that, to where he was really into bodybuilding. And my ego, I wanted to roll with him, and I wanted to tap him. So I get my gi on right before sparring, and I do a warm-up round with my good friend and training partner, Benny Dariush. And we were just completely doing flow training, letting each other pass guard, do positions. Benny's mounted on me. I do a trap and roll escape just to kind of warm up. I just come up on my knee. I didn't come up on it wrong. It was just a worn-out knee that just had its last impact. And there was my knee surgery number one. So, like I just told you, I took a month off for training. When I was 22 or 23, I would not have taken that time off to let my knee fully heal. So I think if there's any sort of wisdom that can be imparted, it's to take time off to heal. And injuries can be chaining. For example, if I injure my knee now and I go 100%, which I'm trying not to in the gym, but I just love jiu-jitsu so much, it's hard. Your muscles are weak, so it's not protecting your knee as much, or shoulder, whatever the case is for whatever injuries that listeners might have out there. It's not taking the time to build up the muscle, because when your muscle's weak, it leads to more injuries and more severe injuries. So that's what I have to say about injuries, even though I'm the worst person to ask.
Did you find it helped your open guard game at all?
The knee injuries?
Yeah, because you don't tend to hold guard as much, or be able to trap in anyone's legs as much. I find. Do you have that or no?
It's kind of interesting. I think most people are familiar with Gordo's story. I don't know how much of this is folklore and how much of this is true. He hurt his knee, so he only played half guard, so he developed the underhook half guard game, which most people kind of perceive now as like the classic half guard attacks and everything. There was some of that, because after, not in terms of guard, but development in other areas that I would not have necessarily developed. For like a month after I started training, I was working like bottom side control, not even playing with any sort of guard, bottom side control and bottom mount, and just descending, not even trying to escape. I do have one of my best attributes. This is not so great for competition, but one of my best attributes is kind of defense from the bottom mount, defense from the side control, and things of that nature. And I'd like to say it was a result of that training, but I was already pretty good as a result of how I was being beat up in Brad Jackson's garage by people, black belts, and people better than me. Why the defense is a little bit above average. It did help, but it wasn't like Gordo's story in that regard.
I was actually wondering, it kind of ties in, it'll be two parts, and it'll make sense, but I believe it will make sense. I mean, all right, one, I just want to know, at what level a belt could you start seeing the little details while watching live rolling? If it's the first week people watch rolling, it just looks like two people maybe, whatever. And
you are not doing anything, right?
Yeah,
we've all shown it to our clients and our friends. What the heck are they doing? This is boring.
It's crazy, but when you watch your videos on YouTube and you're pausing and telling everyone at home what you saw, then I started seeing what you were picking up. It started making sense. So at what level did it take for you to get there? And also, you just said Marcelo you were looking at, and then Zonzi with his sweep, the pendulum sweep. Okay, making your classes revolve around a certain person what does that do for your class opposed to just saying, here's a shin to shin sweep? When you make it Marcelo's shin to shin sweep and show them footage, what does this do for your students?
Well, everybody has a different way of doing the same, I'm using same in air quotes, the same technique. And air quotes over a podcast.
I love it. I saw it.
So everybody has a different way of doing it. And I think as the immature grappler, you say, oh, they're doing it the wrong way, especially when somebody of notoriety says that this is the way they do it. For example, this can even lead into a sidetrack conversation. Mm-hmm. I think one of the most damaging videos to the Berimbolo was the Mendez brothers' real Berimbolo video. You guys, every listener is probably familiar with this, right? The one that Mendez brothers did. Yeah, it's great. But what it did is it was kind of like the young grappler takes that and says that this is the only way to do Berimbolo. You know? Yeah. There was one comment on there that got a zillion thumbs up. I don't think it's on the main list anymore, but it said something to the effect of, well, this puts an end to all other Berimbolo videos. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's kind of interesting because, like, when you're jazzed about it, it seems like a harmless comment. But what I've seen in my teaching is that somebody who comes in, you know, maybe a young blue belt, who really likes the Berimbolo, really likes the Mendez brothers, to them they're king. They're doing that exact method of doing the Berimbolo. And then I go, oh, check it out. This is the way that Samuel Braga does the Berimbolo. He does it like this. He shoots his hook through, in which the Mendez brothers go, no, you can't shoot the hook through on the Berimbolo. It's a waste of time. It's not useful. It closed a lot of students' minds. And I'm just using that as an example, you know. So what studying video allows you to do, if I say this is another way to do this technique, then the student who watches online or whatever can go, oh, this is the way that Hodger does it, though, and your way is different than Hodger, or this is the way Homolo does it, and your way is different from Homolo. What it does is it doesn't make me the person that's showing it to them. It makes it Homolo that's showing it to them. It makes it Marcelo that's showing it to them. So I think the biggest advantage of doing it in this way is, aside from the cool factor, which I think it does have some cool factor, is that it convinces people of a technique. I've shown people my very best jiu-jitsu techniques, stuff that I've spent years and sometimes thousands of dollars acquiring one single technique that really worked or revolutionized my game. And they just kind of ho-hum it because I didn't give them like this good old sales pitch on the technique. When you see Marcelo Garcia, for example, doing this, winning world championships with this methodology, it goes, man, I could do that too. Look, he's teaching me the techniques, but it's not me that they're idolizing. They're idolizing Marcelo. They're idolizing whoever it might be, Kyle Terra or whoever, you know. So that's, interestingly enough, the main benefit I've seen, because really you can get good at any technique. It's just about, you know, are you going to invest the time necessary to get good at that version of that technique? And to answer your first question of what belt level did I feel was best for this type, I feel that purple belt is a really good belt. I feel that like blue belt is like kind of going off to college. You know, you're going out, you're trying new things, and you've kind of figured out by the end of blue belt what's starting to work for your body. You've kind of figured out everybody's all the general positions. You know, nothing kind of catches you by surprise. You might not be intricately detailed in this position or that position, but you've seen the position before. So it allows you to understand to some degree the jiu-jitsu in its entirety. One of the most important things when studying video is not studying the person doing the technique that you are trying to emulate. It's studying the other person. And that's something that I try and convey as well, because sometimes they were able to do that move because of a move that their opponent was trying. And that move is often not very obvious at all. And it takes a lot of experience to see, oh, they were trying to do a knee slice there for a second, and I didn't catch that the first time. It takes an experienced eye to catch that. What I'm hoping to do for the students is maybe kind of show them how I'm doing it so they can develop these skills earlier. But for people that have not analyzed any video at all, purple belt is usually a sufficient time to be able to kind of understand jiu-jitsu in its greater context.
That's awesome. I just want to stay on this topic just for one more time, if you don't mind. And my question is, I'm listening to the way you explain it, and I've watched you on the YouTube showing people how you do it. Do you think you have a clear-cut advantage that you're yourself? And if you had a certain team, that person might be your mortal enemy. They will never show that person's technique or give them props. Do you think you have that edge that you could just pick whoever you want, and you're not being a so-called traitor, or you're not you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I've studied with I live in Southern California, for those that don't know. And Southern California is home to a lot of high-level grapplers. So I've had a wonderful opportunity to train with some of the best grapplers out there and take private lessons with them, etc. And sometimes a very high-level grappler will show me a technique, and they go, please, Dan, I'm kind of working you into my inner circle. Please do not show this to anybody. And it's like, oh, my goodness, I have this technique. Maybe it's great. Maybe it doesn't work for me at the time or whatever. And all I want to do is I want to show it to people. So it's kind of cool because you brought up something, and I'm kind of sidestepping your original question, but it's still kind of interesting nevertheless, is that when I learn techniques like this, I don't need to worry about that. I can show it to whoever I want. And let me tell you, there's not a single person that I've done the analysis on that has liked my analysis.
Really?
So, yeah, not in terms of me actually doing it, because I'm sure that maybe I notice something that they're doing, but I'm articulating it or showing it in a way that completely conflicts with how they think of it or conceive the move. And they're like, nah, that's garbage. One of my friends, he does the dream tournaments here in Southern California. There's a local circuit that he started called the Dream Jiu-Jitsu. And part of what he does is to promote his competition circuit is he goes and trains at a lot of people's different gyms just to make contacts, to invite people to come and participate in this tournament. So he's come by my academy a few times, and the time that he came, I was dissecting Homelo's knee slice. If anybody out there has been following on my British Jiu-Jitsu Facebook, I kind of post what we're learning each day as far as videos go. So you can kind of scroll back and see exactly what we were learning. But that's besides the point. So it was on a day where I was I think it was probably Thursday or Friday. It must have been later in the week because I don't do this until later in the week, where we drill all the elements of that person's system of passing guard. And Homelo's knee slice is rather basic. In terms of it's not that complex to learn. It's just like what I used in class. I said you have to be a honey badger to pass with the knee slice like Homolo does. He grabs the leg with it. He always passes to his left. He grabs his opponent's knee and he pushes it behind his butt and he keeps that grip most of the time. And then he grabs his opponent's collar and starts grinding. That's essentially what the core technique of his system is. So we were putting together like 5 or 6 movements and drills all throughout the class as knee slice. And he goes to Homelo's a few weeks later, and he was all jazzed about the lesson, thought it was really great that we got to see it and sparring and everything on the video analysis. So he goes to Homelo's. And Homelo's somebody who I've had, probably rode with him about 10 times, so we kind of overlap in terms of people we're connected with. And Sean was so impressed that he went and told Homolo that the TrumpetDan had cracked his guard passing system. And you know what he told me? It was just online, so I couldn't get the inflection in it. And he tells me this story, and he finishes with one thing: he was not impressed. Period. So that's the nature of the beast. What people don't realize sometimes is that the people I'm analyzing, sometimes, you know, when they Google their name or whatever, I come up and they watch the analysis that I'm doing of them. And sometimes, as a person, I'm putting myself out there to these people. You know, these are the people that I idolize. These are the people that I perceive as great. Otherwise, I wouldn't be studying them. So it's kind of funky because I do think that my students benefit from it. But at the same time, I'm really putting myself out there to some of these people who I know in some cases. So anyway, that was a funny side story, and I completely forgot the original question.
I think you answered it.
Cool.
What's the hardest part about your involvement and contribution to the sport?
What's the hardest part?
Yeah, like what's the hardest? What are some of the things that you have to deal with that are hard doing what you do for the community?
Yeah. You know, to contribute to anything is very difficult. To contribute to society in some way, to contribute to the sport of jiu-jitsu or whatever it is that you're doing. And I had these great ideas of you know, maybe one day owning my academy, which I do now, and putting it online. And now that I'm kind of in a position to do that, it's like all the greatest grapplers have already done that. You know, you have Mendez, you have Shanji, you have Salo, you have Marcelo. You have some really great grapplers doing what I had conceived of a while ago. I don't even know if I borrowed the idea. It's not about an original idea or not. All I'm trying to do is express kind of some of the frustration that I have. It's like, why would people ever subscribe, pay $9, $10 a month? Why would anybody subscribe to my channel? Because, like, I'm a nobody, you know? What I'm known for is I'm known for breaking down videos online. And that's a cool niche. It's a cool niche to have, you know? But if it wasn't for that, nobody would have heard of me. I don't have, like, any impressive grappling accolades or titles to my name. I'm not the next Keenan Cornelius. I'm not the Meow Brothers. You know, why would people do that? So it's almost like being defeated before I even start. So that's one of the things that I have to kind of overcome in that sense. It's very difficult. So, sorry, my wife is telling me that the kids' class is starting, and she's coming. My wife is right now, she's subbing for the juniors, ages 4 to 7 class she just taught, and the kids' class is starting. But
you go after this question if you like.
No, it's good. We have probably 5 more minutes before they're done.
Okay, perfect.
So yeah, it's kind of like that. Like when I type into Google, I'm like, oh, I have some really great ideas for Leandro Lowe, and then I type into Google to see what's out there, and then I see BJJ Scout has already done what I was planning to do. It's like, yeah, I would have offered like a different take, but it's almost disconcerting, you know, to even kind of start to contribute.
I definitely understand. You know, as we covering media for BJJ, we think we have this hot story, and I look up and you know, Budo Jake has this guy on this week. It's all rolled up.
It's exactly the same thing. It's like,
and we just had Stefan Kesting on, and he's been on 3 interviews right after that. Like, it's like we all had the idea at the same time. No one thought of this 10 months ago. It's pretty odd, actually, the way things work.
Yeah, it is. So that's like kind of like one of the difficulties I have as far as like contributing to the sport. In the end, there's going to be, like, especially if I just do what I'm going to do, even though some people might have already done it, I'm going to get people saying that, oh, it's not original, or oh, this one's better. But I think in the end, I just kind of need to ignore that aspect and just do what I do, and just kind of, to some degree, ignore what's already out there, and just do me to the best of my ability, and kind of let the chips fall where they may.
Man, I think that's great advice for everyone. If you're concerned with the other people, I think then nothing might come out. You know, you'll always cancel your ideas, I think. Mm-hmm. I like what you do, and I really hope you keep it up. And you know what? I told you before we went on air, I honestly have started hitting the shin-to-shin sweep after watching the way you broke down the video. And you know what? If the people writing negative stuff or whatever, I think you know what, best that they're talking about you, whether it's good or bad. I think it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's the reason I do it. You know, I'm in this state of flux right now, where I'm 29 years old. I'm a fairly, you know, decent brown belt, a pretty good competitive level brown belt. Not the worst, not the best. And looking at my path, it's like two roads diverged in a yellow one. And do I want to be that person that gets that world title, or can I find happiness in helping others achieve that world title? So that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I'm leaning, it's not that I'm not going to help my students, but it's almost, I don't want to say a cop-out but in some ways, whatever word it might be less aggressive than the word cop-out, to just focus on my students and go, yeah, that's my contribution. You know, there's a huge part of me that's still a competitor, that wants to be great, that wants to be a world champion. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I choose to do the teaching path. It doesn't matter if I choose to do the competitive path. Because if I choose to do the ultra-competitive path, I'm still going to give up everything I can to my students. And if I still just focus on my students, I'm still going to be training like I'm competing in the World Championships next month. But, you know, that's kind of where I'm at as far as that goes. And to hear, it's this yin and yang, it's back and forth. To hear people like you that say that maybe they hit that sweep for the first time, or reliably for the first time. You know, you're a purple belt, I believe, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, to be able to help somebody who's really experienced in jiu-jitsu get better at jiu-jitsu, that's a wonderful feeling. And, you know, I love hearing, you know, in the comments section or wherever, I get emails from time to time about people how they won a tournament with a closed guard arm drag that I kind of specialize in. You know, that really makes it all worthwhile. But then at the same time, I go to a competition and I go, man, I want to get in there and I want to win. So that's kind of where I'm at, and that's the next chapter for TrumpetDan. By the way, nobody calls me Dan in person. It's kind of an online moniker. It's kind of like a larger than life persona of myself.
You always got to have an alter ego.
Exactly.
Last question before we let you go. Can you take us through one of your favorite BJJ stories?
My favorite BJJ stories.
about yourself.
I have quite a few. The first one that comes to mind, this one might be good for the audience because they might know the other person. And so it was Christmas break, and me and Sean Roberts were blue belts. A lot of people know Sean, so I'll tell this story. And we were bored out of our minds. And what do you do when you're bored out of your mind at the academy? You know, we just got done training with 2 morning sessions. We go on Craigslist and we type in Jiu-Jitsu into the Craigslist search engine. So what do we come up with? We come up with an Orange County Fight Club. And they had videos posted, and, you know, they were saying that, you know, that they were really the greatest thing since sliced bread, that they tap out jiu-jitsu guys, that they knock out Muay Thai guys. It was essentially, you know, you got to admire people's hearts like this, but we were immature as well. We were younger, and younger both in a jiu-jitsu sense and younger in an age sense. So we decided to give them a call because they posted their number. And we aren't going to be mean. Sean and I are actually quite nice people. We weren't going to go there and beat them up or anything. But we were just going to go there and just see what happened for a good story later. And a good story is what we got. So they had some videos online. They're still online, by the way. And of them, I forget what they're titled, so you wouldn't be able to look it up. And it was really, really terrible grappling. It was non-athletic people in their backyard on a carpet that they laid. And it wasn't a backyard, it was a trailer park. So we call them and they say they're having a session in an hour. And I tell Sean, there's absolutely no way I'm going to go and grapple on those carpets, which just stay outside. They look filthy, absolutely filthy. I'm going to go home and I'm going to get my 10x10 puzzle mat and I'll stuff it in my car, and then I'll meet you down there. So Sean and I meet down there, and it's essentially under the 57 and the 22 freeway. It's a trailer park kind of located under there. You know, you got the freeway right as your scenery. A little bit different world than what we're used to. So we show up having no idea what to expect. We get there and, you know, we explain that we do a little bit of jiu-jitsu. We've been training for X amount of time. And we start by showing them a move. You know, we showed them like a hip bump sweep to Kimura or something basic, which they feigned interest in, but didn't really kind of want that. They wanted to just train with us. So Sean goes up first, and they start from standing, I think I'm watching, and they had another guy from Craigslist go with Sean, so he wasn't really a part of these two brothers who were running this fight club. And, you know, he was a wrestler. Good guy. He actually came into our academy. Sean tapped him out real quick. And then I'm up next against one of the brothers, one of the leaders of the fight club. So I think we started from the knees because I didn't want to start from standing in the backyard. There was like tools. There was like pitchforks there. There was a sofa out. All the kids of the neighborhood were there in the backyard. And this guy does a jumping guillotine as I pass guard. And he is pulling my neck like you wouldn't believe. It wasn't a guillotine. It was like a headlock type of thing. And he was pulling for all the fiber in his being. So I'm just kind of sitting there, you know, I'm just kind of understanding that he is, you know, just cranking on my neck. He doesn't really know any better. It's fine. Just kind of work my way out of the situation. So about a minute passes. And about this time, I'm realizing that I have a competition the next week. And that I really, really don't want a sore neck. And really the only way to get out of this, you can try a Von Flu choke, you can try and grind your forearm. So I did the grind the forearm to the neck as I did it, and he still wasn't letting go. So I start grinding really hard, putting all my weight in on his arm. He finally lets go. And by this time, I'm kind of a little bit angry with him. You know, he didn't know any better. He was just naive, but this is my young self. And so I take the back, tap him out, and then I tap him out like 4 more times in the next 2 minutes. And then Sean goes and does the same with the next guy. And that was the last, the meeting ended. So after Sean rolled with the second brother, the meeting ended with one of the people watching having an allergic reaction to peanuts, and then calling having to rush down to the emergency room. And that was kind of our experience with the nice fight club there. They didn't do any strikes, luckily, but they did try for heel hooks and toe holds, kind of, on us. And since then, it was their last meeting. So it's kind of like just a little funny story. We had never heard from them since. They actually posted the video, one of the videos of Sean rolling with one of the other guys. It was just still on YouTube. It was just kind of a fun afternoon between two training partners.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that story. It's actually quite entertaining, and if you visualize it, it seems even more ridiculous. Also, I'd just like to thank you for taking your time out. I know you have classes going on at your academy, so we appreciate you coming on and being a guest.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys having me.
No problem. Enjoy your rest of your night, and I'll send you an email with the rest of the details when it's up, ready to go for the people to listen to.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
All right, so that's another episode of BJJ Addict Radio. Stay tuned next week. We got Danny. I can't say his last name. Jared, hit it.
What?
Hit his last name. Danny Prokopis.
Oh, Denny Prokopis. You guys who know?
Yeah, man. 10th Planet, San Fran. First ever Eddie Bravo black belt. He'll be on chopping it up with us live. And the weekend after, we got Samuel Braga, the original Baron Bolo. TrumpetDan was just talking about him during our great interview. And, yeah, big things coming up. A lot of great names coming in the future. So tune in next week, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern, and that's about it. Thank you, Jer. It was a pleasure once again.
Oos.
All right, stay tuned, guys. We
Hashtag
are out. Hashtag what? Hang tight, dudes?
Hashtag hang tight, dudes.
Take care, everyone.
Peace.